a level change or a shot on Pereira would be good because he's... Oh!
That's what I'm talking about.
And still, the last Adesanya.
Of 276, the main card of Alex Pereira vs Sean Strickland. Everyone expected to see the fight from the American, but he decided to work with the kickboxer on the stand, for which he paid with a hard left hook, and now he is the main contender for the belt. Now moving on to the main event of the evening, Israel Adesanya vs Jared Cannonier. From start to finish, Izzy showed what a champion level is by defeating Cannonier by unanimous decision. And now there are no questions about the next fight of Adesanya. Hello Fighters, MMA Iron Channel is with you, and in this video, I will give a forecast for the fight Israel Adesanya vs Alex Pereira. But before starting this video, I would like to ask you to subscribe to the channel and like it so that more people know about this channel. Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya have already met in the sports arena. But according to the kickboxing rule, where the Brazilian won twice, the first time he controversially defeated the Nigerian by a split decision of the judges. But in the second fight, he left Israel no chance by knocking him out. And now they should soon announce their third fight in order to finally put an end to their confrontation. Based on Israel Adesanya's past fights, some fans think that Izzy has slipped, but I don't think so. Adesanya is a counter-striker. His task is to catch opponents on a counterattack. But how will he do it if his opponent does not go for him, does not try to escalate the situation? That's all for some reason they criticize Adesanya, but not his opponents. Jared Cannonier, instead of going on the attack, shortening the distance, he somehow tried to hit the champion at a distance. Then Robert Whittaker, who worked in a similar manner, tried to get Izzy's chin at a distance. I don't know how you can take the belts like that. And in turn, the champion does everything right. As soon as his opponent tries to attack him, he catches them and knocks them out, as it was in the first fight against Robert Whittaker. In the fight against Paulo Costa, it was clear that his opponents want to win. They want to take the belt, but the current contenders refuse to go forward to put pressure on them, and such an attitude towards fights gives such results. But everything can change since Alex Pereira will not be afraid to put pressure on Adesanya, and this guarantees us a spectacular fight. Let's start with the challenger. Alex Pereira, like Israel Adesanya, came from kickboxing, where he was able to adjust his style to MMA, and as we understood it, it paid off. It's better not to trade with such a fighter in the stand. In the last fight against Strickland, the American had to fight the Brazilian, since in the stand against an experienced kickboxer, he had no chance, and so Sean underestimated Alex's skills and was masterfully knocked out. But not only in this fight, Pereira showed his nature. In the last two fights, it was clear that Pereira is a problem for the middleweight. His kicks are much better than those of the champion. Also, unlike Israel, Alex has good boxing. His accuracy is simply amazing, and this once again proves the theory that the force of the blow is not important. The main thing is to hit accurately, and the knockout will come to you. For Adesanya, Pereira will be a real big problem, since the champion has not yet had such an opponent who is not worse in the stance than him. Mainly Israel's opponents were fighters with powerful blows who could be easily caught on a mistake. But with Pereira, this is unlikely whether it will pass. What can be said about the champion? He continues to clean up the middle division by dominating every fight. He leaves no chance for his opponent. As soon as they try to damage Izzy, he sees everything and performs a hard counterattack. He breaks through either a low kick or a hook, after which the opponent falls into a knockout. Adesanya will never let you get hit. He is such a technical fighter that so far, no one has figured out his style of introduction of the fight. Let's talk a little about his punches, what he usually hits. From Israel's past fights, I realized that he has two main blows with which he dominates his fights, jab and low kick. None of Israel's opponents could neutralize these blows, but another kickboxer who knows these chips and won't fall for them. After thinking for a long time, I chose Alex Pereira as the favorite. For this period of time, he is a more improved version of Adesanya. He is not afraid to aggravate and put pressure on his opponents. Israel Adesanya is good in this aspect. For a long reign in the UFC, he learned how to work in the clinch, how to defend himself from transfers, how not to let himself be strangled. As we all remember very well at the beginning, Izzy's fight was not very cool. In the first fight against Marvin Vettori, it could be seen the champion, due to inexperience, gave up positions, thereby losing the fight. But now Israel has progressed so much that now he is not afraid of more than one middleweight wrestler. In the second fight against Marvin Vettori, it was noticeable how much he had grown in this aspect. Also, Cannonier, with the help of his mass, tried to transfer Adesanya, but he could not do it since Israel's progress was dynamic. Now, looking at the top middleweight, I don't see a fighter who could easily transfer and control the champion in a fight. You may not agree with me, I understand, and therefore you can write your opinion in the comments. But Alex Pereira is much lower than the champion. In his first MMA fight, it was clearly shown that the Brazilian needs to pay more attention to wrestling skills, such as grappling, BJJ. Also in the second fight in the UFC, Alex again had problems with this aspect, and the most interesting thing was that his opponent was not very cool in the fight. In this duel, he can be said to be lucky, since you should not expect a fight here. Both strikers are first class. But as I said, Alex needs to improve his wrestling skills. He can and will win Israel, but in the next fight, for example, he will get Marvin Vettori, who will fight him all 5 rounds, and that's it, the end of the reign. And therefore, after a fight with a champion, he needs to train more with wrestlers who will raise his level and point out his mistakes. The favorite in the fight is obvious. Israel Adesanya has more experience and knowledge in this discipline, and it will be easier for him than Pereira. It's too early to draw conclusions about Alex Pereira's endurance. During his MMA career, he only fought 7 fights and went through 3 rounds once. Of course, he won kickboxing more than once by decisions. But you shouldn't compare 2 different sports. Kickboxing and MMA are very different. And therefore, it is worth drawing conclusions on the endurance of the Brazilian from walking out of a career in MMA. And at the moment, he has no experience. Yes, he went the full distance once and seemed to show himself well. But how will he look in the 3rd round if the fight does not go according to plan? That's what will happen then. The fight will last 5 rounds, as this is a championship fight, and for Alex Pereira, it will be a real test, and how he will show himself there can only be guessed. But you can't say the same about Israel Adesanya's endurance. For him, it has become commonplace to go through 5 rounds. And there's nothing to add here, because even in a tough fight against Gaston, Izzy looked good, so the champion's endurance is at the highest level among all middleweight contenders. At the moment, no one can surpass him in endurance or be on the same level with him. I don't see such fighters yet. Well, according to the favorites in terms of endurance, of course, there will be a champion. How can you even doubt the breadth of a Nigerian when a fighter who has just recently made his debut in MMA comes out against him? In terms of spirit, I believe more in Alex Pereira. As he himself stated, he switched to MMA with one goal to fight Adesanya again, and now he has such an opportunity, and now he is more motivated than ever, unlike the champion, who has already had enough fights, and it was no longer interesting. I think in order to increase the motivation of Israel Adesanya, he needs to change weight, compete with John Jones, then the motivation for Izzy will return. I think Israel Adesanya will win this fight again. Most likely, he will work the same as he did, throw jabs, destroy the Brazilian's leg, and so the whole fight, of course. Alex can surprise us after all. He deserves to be in this position, but so far I don't see a chance for the Brazilian. A confident victory for the champion. After the next victory of Adesanya, he will want to change something, and most likely he will move to light heavyweight for more interesting fights, since the average weight cannot give this. After the defeat, Alexa is waiting for a test in the form of serious tops. They can give him Paulo Costa, Robert Whittaker, and if he manages to defeat them, then it is likely that he will have another fight for the belt. And what do you think who will win this fight? I want to see your opinion in the comments.